of the day, Crank against Puck. Spawning over in the top right-hand position as the red Protoss, it is Axiom Crank. Over here on Derelict Watcher, his opponent to the bottom left-hand position. It is Root for Root Puck. Now, these players were able to see each other's PvPs. So I think that actually influences the matchup altogether. And we might see a lot of technically inefficient play that is just solely based on what they've kind of gathered from each other. They're going to be cutting corners because StarCraft is a game of cutting corners to gain these small little advantages. And then from there, you obviously try to win the game.
I'd say Puck has the advantage in that, because if Crank watched Puck's previous PvPs, I don't think he'll have any idea of what Puck's going to throw at him this game. But Crank, he plays more systematically, and it's easier to predict, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we saw, I think, 4 different not all-ins, but 4 different builds coming out from Puck in the last 2 PvP series, right? 2 PvPs? That's quite a many, so yeah, he's all over the place. The range is so incredibly large. And I feel like Crank, overall, we know he wants to go into macro mode, so Puck might go to abuse that. You can do that by getting a very quick third base somehow or another. Maybe, I wouldn't even say ninja expansions, but there are definitely ways to even get a fast natural, like we saw the 1-gate expand, that's more than capable from Puck. We'll see. I know Korean PvP is really, really thought out. And a lot of crazy stuff happens with Korean PvP rather than the foreign PvP.
Also, another way that Puck might have a small advantage going into this is I think he probably prepared for Crank, and Crank might not have prepared for him, because I think Puck would expect to play Crank in the final match. If he looks at himself and thinks that he'll be in the final match, I think he's going to expect Crank to be there, not Minigun. So he might have prepared for Crank, but Crank might not know who would win between Puck and Minigun, so that could play into it a little bit.
That's true. And the fact that Puck, you know, we always talk about Scarlet only preparing for one matchup, but it's more than likely that Puck only prepared for one matchup too.
Yeah, I mean, as Puck, you're not going to be like, oh, this is easy, I'll just beat Scarlet and then take it from there.
Yeah. So that's definitely a big indicator. And was this Twilight Council scouted? Yes, it was. The question is, will it be a Dark Shrine, or is it going to be Blink, or is it going to be canceled? It's more than likely that it gets canceled as well. But this is incredibly fast Twilight Council.
Well, Puck's probe is still here. He can still go see it. But I guess it could still be canceled after. I thought it might get scouted.
Cancel? Yep.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to let it finish, I don't think, in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. And he's just going to go for the Nexus. On the other side, though, look at what we see. Twilight Council.
I think this could be for a Blink all-in. It would be maybe a bit late for DTs, I think.
I think so. Blink seems very reasonable. It could be Dark Templars. Again, we don't know.
This is a good map for Blink Stalker all-ins, I think, if you're going to do it. Because you can easily blink into the main from the low ground, and you can kind of push up against the natural too going up that ramp. So
yeah, there's a lot of really cute ways. I mean, even this area right here allows you to retreat pretty easily and not be chased.
Can you force field the ramp from the low ground with a sentry?
Yes.
Maybe just throw down a force field on that, blink into the main base.
Yes, you can.
And take advantage of it, so.
See if he does that. As it looks like it will be Blink Stalkers, you're absolutely right. Robo is going to go down, though. And that makes a lot of sense, actually. What am I talking about?
For that Observer, maybe?
For the Observer to defend against Dark Templars. Right?
Yeah.
He saw Twilight Council. He can't just be like, well, there's no chance that Dark Templars come out right now. He has to say, okay, let me defend against that range. And makes a lot of sense from here. It looks like it's just going to be 2-gate Twilight Robo into a 3rd-gate Expand. That's what it feels like right now.
From Puck?
From Puck. Is he really going to put on pressure?
I think he might.
No, don't get me wrong. I want him to put on pressure, but
he has 4 Stalkers out now with a 5th warping in. I think he wouldn't have this many if he's not going to pressure.
Yeah.
And he has a probe hidden close to... He has 2 probes out, too. I don't think he'd have 2 probes out if he was going to expand.
Yeah, that's true. I just felt like this is such a small army, but he's obviously having to dump so much gas, not only in the Robo, but the Observers, the Blink, Twilight Council,
I
all this
almost
stuff
feel like
costs
he
a lot.
has to pressure though after he sees that Nexus is done and there's already about 5 probes there. If he expands, he's going to be pretty far behind economically.
Well, he will. It looks like he will expand right now, but this is kind of like auxiliary. He's hoping to do a lot of pressure first and then start to saturate everything. But I love this decision by Crank. He's going to try to punish his opponent as soon as he pushes out on the map. He will be there to just warp in a couple of zealots and just distract him.
I think I might actually be wrong though. I don't think Puck's going to try to put on too much pressure. He would have warped in more Starfish, but now he doesn't have a proxy pylon yet. I think Puck is just going to try to play for a macro game from a position in which he has a deficit on starting out, which will be tough against Crank.
It's a huge deficit too. I mean, if you can even see, this sentry count is so nice, and it used to be sentries are like the bad unit to get as soon as Colossus pop onto the field, as soon as Archons pop onto the field. But this represents just so much vision of your opponent. With those hallucinated phoenixes, it just helps out so much. We'll see what Blinkstalkers are able to do. Maybe pick off a couple of these sentries, maybe a couple of zealots. But of course, Photon Overcharge, he has just about 2 of them. So we'll approach that at probably around 9:30.
So, I'm not sure how much he can get done here. There's several Immortals in the field, put an overcharge. He'll get that Mothership Core.
Nope.
Oh, that's
Just
kind of
one
unlucky,
shot
I think.
away. Wow. Yeah, that is definitely unlucky. Killing the Mothership Core would have... I mean, even that wouldn't have really helped much.
Still better than nothing,
Yes.
though.
Yeah. Definitely so. Now, saturating this natural, finally, income tab showing 41 to 37. So I like how Crank has been playing, just slowly gaining up in that probe count so that he can kind of see, are you committing a lot to your natural, or are you keeping up with this 1.5 base all-in? That's something that's very reasonable. I like the positioning so far. Puck right now can blink up into the main base, but he's not going to choose to do so.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of risky. There's a couple sentries, they have a lot of energy. You could get force fielded forwards a little bit and take some damage from those Immortals, because it's a decently long cooldown before you can blink out after you did that.
Oh, I like this. He's just going to kill a couple of these probes, blink out, and what he's trying to do is force the units to go down here. And once they do, then he can blink into the main base. Although we've seen very audacious and bold moves. Yesterday, Huck was playing up against Zoo Top, and he just blinked up and just absolutely decimated Top.
Yeah, I would like to see like a force field on the ramp from the low ground, then he could blink up and snipe those 2 Immortals, but he doesn't have a sentry up here, so he can't do that.
Yep.
I think he's just trying to poke, but not getting too much done so far.
So far, no third base has been established by either of these players, but upgrades are starting up. Look at this, double forge coming down here. So you will be getting +1/+1. What do you think about this armor upgrade? Because a lot of Protosters just disregard this upgrade altogether, especially Archons. They don't gain anything from that.
I think it can be good. It's actually getting armor and shields, not +1. What do you think about that?
Wow. Oh, wait, he canceled? Okay.
Okay,
it was a
+1.
misclick.
Okay. I think it can be good. I used to see this a lot when Wings of Liberty and everyone went Colossi styles, but with the Immortal Archon styles, it's not as good, I don't think. But still, the upgrades will obviously help you out if you have the same army count and you have the upgrades, you'll win usually.
Well, I'm honestly undecided about it. I don't know if I like it or dislike it just yet. But we'll see how it actually turns out. As +2 is being started right now, is this going to be some all-in timing from Crank?
I don't think so. I think it's tough to all-in a player who doesn't have a third base. He might choose to do that if he sees a quick third or something. But if he sees a 2-base Protoss, it's kind of difficult to all-in up a ramp with foot and overcharge on the ramp, so.
I agree. But with so many Immortals, maybe he's thinking that, but Blinkstalker is going to come into the natural base now. Maybe pick off a couple of units. Starting up, oh, there are Immortals on the high ground that are getting picked off. This is a nice little engagement here, but he's only able to kill 1. I think 3-4 Stalkers are going to be killed there. So it actually works out nicely for Crank, the Immortal staying back, and the other pack of units trying to chase down Puck's army, but not going to be able to do so all that well. Third base has been taken for Crank. No third base insight for Puck, and he's going the same exact composition, getting charged now. I believe charge is already finished for Crank. Yes, it is. And I'm not sure if Crank is... No, he's just posturing out in the field.
Yeah, I think Puck, his third is going to be a bit later naturally just because he's going for that double forge. Usually, you can't take a third as quickly if you're going for a stronger composition off of your 2 bases.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. As we saw before, you can still win even if your expansion's a lot later in PvP if you just get a better army than them and position it a little bit better.
Let's take a look at the army supply. 91 to 62. Big advantage. Just about 50% increase relative to Puck's army. So things aren't looking too great. And with the third base starting up much faster, more importantly, the 5th and 6th gases, Crank will be able to produce a lot more Archons a lot faster.
Puck's actually getting Psystorm now. Maybe that's a mistake. I'm not sure. I don't actually like Psystorm that much in PvP.
Yeah.
Usually it doesn't do too much damage, and I feel like the gas would be better invested in Archons.
I do too. And, you know, people have asked this before, like, why get Colossus and not get High Templars, not get Storm? Well, Colossus have that burst, right? You can overlap the Colossus fire, whereas Storm, if you overlap the Storms, it does nothing. And that's the big thing that comes down to it. And just that time it takes to merge the Archons, you could be doing a lot more damage with just Archons, merged Archons as it is. That's why I'm not a big fan of Storm, but we'll see. Maybe he's just trying to do it onto his opponent's workers. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Just trying to get that economic advantage. But man, oh man, is he going to be caught out of position. All these Immortals in a really bad place. Gonna get, no, he's gonna be recalling and defending against this drop in the bottom left-hand position at the same time. Wow, that was razor thin. But I don't think he can contest this army. It's just too big. The Archon count is just way too high.
Well, I think he knows that as well. He's not trying to saturate that third base yet because he knows there's a possibility it's going to die. So that's smart.
Blinkstalkers in the main base of Crank doing a little bit of damage, or at least just annoying him. But it looks like Crank will just back up from here.
I think Puck, he just wants to get an army that he thinks can win and then try to get the better engagement in this situation. And he does have a lot of mortals. He'll eventually have better upgrades than Crank. So maybe if he draws out to late game, even with being at a worse economic position, he can come back into the game.
Well, it is 2-2 against 3, or excuse me, 2-2 against 3-0, approaching 3-0. But a maxed out army for Crank. This is his position where, you know, he is ahead, so you know what they say. When you're ahead, attack. And that's probably words that he should heed pretty soon here. As there are Blinkstalkers behind. Gonna die. But a nice drop yet again going into the main base. I love this. So what it does is it forces units out in the bottom left-hand position. If there are warp-ins, hopefully he can get the better end of it. But it actually weakens the front here. Storms are going to go off. And is it going to be enough AoE? You know, this is the position where there's just not enough stuff. And even though there's an upgrade advantage, it doesn't matter. There's too many Zealots. They still stay alive. GG gets called out, and Puck will tap out. Crank takes game number 1.